She's not asking. She's not complaining. She's not even reacting. She's just watching. Her smile doesn't falter. Her tone doesn't change. Her gaze remains soft, but beneath that feminine calm is something surgical, strategic, calculating. She's placing small, invisible tripwires between the moments of your time together. You don't see them, but they're everywhere. And the second you step on one, she'll know exactly who you are. Because women do not test you with words. They test you with silence, with micro-shifts in tone, with pregnant pauses after casual questions, with small requests that seem innocent, but carry the weight of kingship. She doesn't want an answer. She wants to see your structure collapse under the illusion of a choice. Because the truth Machiavelli knew is that in the game of power, the weak man obeys commands, but the powerful man bends reality. A woman wants to know if she is beside a man who can bend the moment to his will, or if she'll have to be the one in control. This is the painful paradox of male romantic life. You think you're building connection, but she's analyzing how much of yourself you'd betray to keep her happy. You think you're flirting, but she's measuring how desperate you are to please. You think it's love, but she's running a silent diagnostic of your psychological structure, searching for cracks, seeking signs of softness, testing your immunity to emotional leverage. Because Machiavelli was right. Love is a currency, but fear is stability. Respect is not freely given. It is manufactured through precise psychological warfare. Today, you'll learn how to win that war. Through 5 escalating scenarios, you're going to understand exactly how women silently test the boundaries of your power. Not to destroy you, but to find out if you are worthy of surrender. We will dissect each interaction through Machiavelli's ruthless framework. Never appeal to mercy. Never let kindness precede fear, and never, ever let your need outweigh your presence. This is not about cruelty. It's about structure, dominance, legacy. And we begin with her most common, subtle, and effective tactic. You're focused deep in work, planning, executing. Maybe you're prepping for a meeting, finishing a project, or engaged in something requiring full cognitive force. You're sharp, efficient, locked in. That's when she walks into the room. Her voice is sweet, maybe playful. She smiles, leans lightly on the table, and says something like, "Hey, babe. Can you do me a quick favor? It's small, harmless. Can you help me carry this upstairs? Can you take a look at this for a second? Can you make a quick call for me?" It's not urgent. It's not life-threatening. But the timing is surgical. She didn't ask 5 minutes earlier when you were idly scrolling through your phone. She didn't ask later when you were relaxed. She chose this moment, this exact second, when your energy is concentrated and your will is engaged. Why? Because this is not about the favor. It's about dominance testing, subtly, invisibly. The evolutionary logic behind this is ancient. A man in motion is a man in power. The one who controls the flow of his own attention is the one who controls the outcomes of the tribe. Women intuitively understand this. So when she tests your attention, she is not trying to sabotage your day. She is unconsciously checking whether your mission has authority over your desire to please her. If your focus can be broken by her voice, her need, her smile, then how solid is your frame? Can she really trust you to lead if you can't even protect your own concentration? She's not doing this maliciously. But the test is real, and the stakes are far higher than the favor implies. Because your response will speak volumes, not just to her, but to your own nervous system. It's a test of your internal hierarchy, mission or woman, power or pleasure. He hears her voice, and without a second thought, drops everything. Closes the laptop, stands up, smiles. "Sure, babe." Of course. He follows her, helpful, eager, maybe even a little proud that he can be useful to her. In his mind, this is love. This is partnership. This is being a good man. But in her subconscious, something dark and ancient is registering a completely different signal. Not admiration, not affection, but collapse. What just happened? He surrendered the throne of his attention. He abandoned the kingdom of focus. Not because there was a fire, not because someone was in danger, but because the queen waved her hand and the king obeyed. This seems small. It's not. In Machiavellian terms, it is the forfeiture of command. He has shown that her whims override his discipline, that his need to be seen as kind, helpful, agreeable, overrules his internal priority system. And if his priorities can be reshuffled by a gentle voice and a casual ask, how can she trust his spine when life applies pressure? Psychologically, she begins to reframe him, not as a source of strength, but as an extension of her will. A servant in the throne room of his own life. She may still say thank you. She may still kiss his cheek. But the gears in her attraction mechanism are shifting. Slowly, quietly, he is now compliant, not commanding. Available, not essential. And the most dangerous part? He thinks he did the right thing. Because a woman does not judge you by your intentions. She judges you by the architecture of your presence. When you bend too easily, you signal that your identity is negotiable. And in the psychology of desire, nothing kills female arousal faster than a man who negotiates with himself. She enters the room. She smiles. She asks. And he doesn't flinch. His body remains still. His eyes don't immediately dart to her. His tone doesn't shift into that high-pitched sweetness that betrays desperation. Instead, he holds his posture, breathes, looks at her slowly, and says something like, "I'll help you in 10 minutes. I'm focused right now. No apologies, no guilt. Just calm, direct, immovable authority." That is a Machiavellian move. Why? Because it communicates one thing. I govern my world. My time, my attention, my power, it all flows from a center that cannot be hijacked by affection or demand. He is not disrespectful. He is not cold, but he is firm. And in that firmness, she senses something electric, structure. What he's demonstrating is frame control at a cellular level. He didn't lash out. He didn't ignore her. He simply made it clear subtly, but absolutely, that his internal mission has gravity, that she cannot rearrange his orbit with cuteness or need. And that is magnetic. Machiavelli said it best. It is better to be feared than loved, if one cannot be both. But the deeper truth is this. When a man possesses the kind of internal discipline that commands quiet respect, a woman's love will bend toward him naturally, because women do not want to steer the ship. They want to be swept away by a captain who knows his heading and refuses to drift. This moment, small as it seems, declares to her subconscious, this man cannot be moved by weakness, and therefore he is safe. She pauses, just for a second. There's a flicker of something behind her smile. Confusion? Perhaps? Annoyance? Maybe, at first. But beneath both something deeper. A flicker of respect. She didn't get her way immediately, and that stings. But it also thrills, because for the first time in a while, she's in the presence of a man who's not performatively helpful, not desperate to please, not afraid of disappointing her in the name of mission. Something ancient stirs inside her, that old feminine hunger to be led, not controlled, not dominated, laid. And she realizes, maybe not consciously, that this man leads not just with words, but with self-governance. She walks away, maybe playfully annoyed, but inside, her imagination is on fire. Who is this man who resists her softness? Who does he think he is? Why does his calm boundary make her heart beat faster? What began as a simple ask for help has now mutated into fascination. Her perception of him is evolving. He's no longer the nice guy. He's something else, something rare. A man with an unshakable mission. And in her silence, she smiles. You're out together, maybe at a bar, a social event, or even just scrolling through social media while sitting next to her. The night is smooth. She's in a good mood. But then, casually, surgically, she drops a name. Maybe it's a guy from her past. Maybe it's someone she used to talk to. Maybe it's just a vague reference. Yeah, I used to have a thing with a guy like that. She doesn't linger. She doesn't make a scene. She just lets the name hang there, draped in ambiguity. Then she watches. This is the bait. She's not bragging. She's not confessing. She's releasing a psychological flare into your space to see what burns. Because if your power is real, you'll stay composed. But if your ego is fragile, if your identity is still contingent on her exclusivity, this is where you'll crumble. This tactic is a primal one. Evolutionarily, jealousy is a barometer of a male's inner hierarchy. If a man can be emotionally hijacked by competition, it signals he is still governed by external threats. Women want to feel desired, but more than that, they want to feel they've been chosen by a man who doesn't need to fight for validation. A king does not flinch when reminded of past suitors. He knows who he is. He knows she knows it too. And so, this subtle test arises, not because she wants you to feel pain, but because she needs to know your status, I send tia costume. That you're not just confident when the wind is still, but when the storm is hinted at. The average man takes the bait. His shoulders tense. His jaw tightens. His tone sharpens just slightly. Oh yeah? Who was he? He tries to sound curious, casual. But the tremor is there. He asks more questions than he should. Tries to decipher every detail of her tone, every pixel of her expression. His mind floods with images, comparisons, imagined threats. Suddenly, he's no longer in control of the interaction. He's spiraling inside it. What she sees in that moment is not just insecurity. It's exposure. The illusion of strength melts, revealing a man who cannot maintain emotional sovereignty in the face of ambiguity. A man who is secretly terrified of not being enough. And what began as a light-hearted evening has now turned into an emotional audit. Even if he tries to hide it, she knows. She sees the defensiveness, the subtle withdrawal, the interrogation disguised as curiosity. And what was meant to be a test of depth reveals his emotional shallowness. The Machiavellian collapse here is simple. He gave her power. He let her control the narrative. And worst of all, he signaled that her past can still haunt him. A Machiavellian man never lets ghosts disrupt his present. He is immune to shadows. She says the name, drops the reference, watches you, and you unmoved. You sip your drink, smirk, look at her with amused eyes. Maybe you say something like, "Poor guy. Bet he still thinks about you." Then you lean back, change the subject, or return to what you were doing completely unbothered. Not performatively aloof, authentically unconcerned. That's power. Because this isn't just about ignoring her words. It's about subcommunicating. I do not compete with ghosts. I am the present. I am the standard. And I don't need to interrogate you to feel secure. Your past does not threaten me. It merely confirms what I already know. You are always searching for someone like me. Machiavelli would call this maintaining state, holding your power through inner control rather than outer conflict. By refusing to engage emotionally, you've just flipped the test on its head. Now she's wondering if you care, if you're jealous, if maybe you've already decided your value is too high to play emotional games. That reversal is surgical. It recenters the frame. Now she's the one reaching. You've become scarce not physically, but psychologically. The smile she gave when she said the name starts to fade, slowly. She's not disappointed. She's curious. The reaction she expected never arrived. No jealousy. No defensiveness. No digging. Instead, she's left with a riddle. Why didn't he bite? And that absence becomes obsession. Now she begins comparing you, not to her past, but to her idea of what power looks like. This isn't just attraction, it's intrigue. She replays the moment in her mind. Was he hurt? Is he playing a game? Or is he truly that grounded? Her perception of you changes fundamentally. You've become an unknown variable. And in the psychology of desire, mystery is magnetic. She no longer feels superior. She feels pulled, compelled. Because you did not ask for reassurance, she now seeks yours. And deep in her primal instincts, a realization blooms. This man is not just attractive, he is unshakable. She texts you less, calls less. Suddenly, the warmth in your conversations cools down. Not abruptly, but subtly. You notice the delays, the shorter replies, the fading emojis. It's not a fight. It's not anger. It's silence, withdrawal, and she's watching carefully. This is the most insidious test because it is entirely nonverbal. You are left to interpret absence and ambiguity. Is she upset? Bored? Testing boundaries? This quiet retreat is a powerful psychological probe. Evolutionarily, withdrawal signals recalibration of investment. She's asking, do you chase? Do you panic? Or do you maintain your center? Because women's attraction is governed not by presence alone, but by how men respond to absence. The cold space she creates demands that you demonstrate emotional independence, not desperation. Machiavelli's principle of power is clear. Men judge generally more by the eye than by the hand, for everyone can see and few can feel. This withdrawal makes her emotions invisible, forcing you to project your strength without external validation. It's a test of your internal narrative. Can you hold your identity when the mirror she once held up now cracks and fades? The typical man, confronted with silence, reacts immediately. His phone becomes a desperate tool. Rapid texts, pleading calls, anxious questions. Are you okay? What's wrong? Please don't ignore me. Each message is a cry for confirmation, a signal flare of insecurity. To her, this is collapse in real time. A man who once stood tall now crumbles beneath the weight of ambiguous absence. His frantic pursuit communicates emotional fragility, dependency, and a willingness to be moved by her mood swings. It erases any frame of authority he had established. Psychologically, this response triggers a paradox. While his intentions might be loving, his actions subvert his power. He's no longer a fortress. He's a sandcastle being washed away by the tide of her indifference. She no longer views him as a leader of his own fate, but as a man tethered to her emotional whims. In Machiavellian terms, he has lost control of his narrative. The void she created becomes a vacuum filled with his weakness. And attraction, which thrives on mystery and strength, dies in the presence of frantic need. She withdraws. And you respond with absolute calm. No messages, no calls, no pleading. Instead, you engage in your own world with even greater intensity. You invest your energy into your mission, your projects, your social circles. You become less available, not as punishment, but as consequence of your internal order. When you do communicate, it's brief, confident, and unbothered. A simple message like, "I'm here when you're ready," says more than pages of anxious texts. It radiates control, detachment, sovereignty. This response is not coldness. It's power. It signals that your identity is self-generated and not dependent on her validation. You're not chasing approval. You're extending an invitation on your own terms. Machiavelli understood this dynamic deeply. Power is preserved not by the possession of affection, but by the maintenance of autonomy. The silent withdrawal becomes your stage to demonstrate that your worth is inherent, not granted or revoked by her attention. In this stance, you invert the test. Her silence no longer destabilizes you. Instead, it amplifies your value. You become the prize she cannot reach, but desperately wants. She notices. The more she pulls back, the less you respond. And this paradoxically intensifies her curiosity. Her initial withdrawal becomes a self-inflicted trap. Instead of chasing you, she's now wondering what you're doing, who you're talking to, how you can maintain such calm. Her internal narrative shifts from "is he here?" to "who is he really?" She starts to imagine a man with deep roots, someone who doesn't crumble under absence, but thrives in it. This transition plants a seed of respect, and respect is the soil from which attraction blossoms. The psychological transformation in her mind is profound. The man she once thought vulnerable now appears as a fortress. The dynamic of pursuit flips. She goes from the tester to the tested. And in this new reality, desire is reborn not through words, but through the power of silent presence. Her mind lingers on this shift long after the moment passes, creating a magnetic tension that pulls her closer. You become not just her choice, but her challenge. The man who wins by simply not losing. You're out in a social setting, a dinner party, a group hangout, or a casual gathering with mutual friends. The atmosphere is lively, filled with laughter and banter. She casually throws out a provocative comment aimed at you, not aggressive, but teasing. Maybe she questions a choice you made, or playfully mocks a trait. It's indirect, light, but unmistakably a challenge. This is her silent probe into your social power. By testing you in front of others, she's asking, how do you handle pressure when your status is publicly scrutinized? Do you fold under the spotlight, or do you command respect? The psychology here is layered. In evolutionary terms, public displays of dominance and submission affect mate selection. A man who defends his honor and frame in front of the tribe signals high value. Conversely, one who wavers reveals vulnerability. Machiavelli taught that power depends on perception as much as reality. This test forces you to manifest your authority where others can witness it. It is a trial by fire away for her to see if you can defend your identity when the stakes are highest. The typical weak response is an immediate apology or defensive backtrack. A man might laugh nervously, lower his eyes, or quickly explain himself to smooth over the perceived offense. He may even agree with the teasing, trying to win approval by being nice or funny. This response detonates his power. It signals that he's fragile enough to be rattled by social pressure. His frame cracks under the gaze of the group. The subtle hierarchy shifts instantly. He moved from potential leader to social subordinate. Psychologically, this surrender is catastrophic. It reveals a lack of internal authority and a willingness to trade respect for acceptance. She registers this deeply. Her attraction wanes because desire thrives on strength, not submission. Moreover, this behavior communicates desperation. He becomes the man who needs approval from the tribe and from her. That neediness is the death knell of masculine magnetism. She issues her indirect challenge, and you respond with measured calm. You hold eye contact. You smile confident, not cocky. You don't over-explain or justify. Maybe you respond with a light, disarming comment that subtly reasserts your frame without aggression. I prefer making my own mistakes. Or simply note it. This shows two things. First, you acknowledge her presence and the social setting without submission. Second, you demonstrate unshakable confidence. You are not threatened by her attempt to unsettle you. You absorb it and redirect it effortlessly. Machiavelli's principle of power here is reflected in the art of maintaining control while appearing adaptable. You neither escalate nor retreat. You hold your ground, signaling psychological sovereignty. This reaction reverberates socially. Others sense your calm strength. She sees a man who is unbothered by external judgments, a leader in his own right. That perception ignites desire. Because a man who cannot be rattled by others is a man worth following. Her teasing lands flat. Her eyes widen slightly, registering surprise. The man she was testing is not the man she expected. There's a flicker of new respect. The subtle dance of social dominance just shifted in your favor. Her internal narrative rewrites itself. Instead of seeing you as someone malleable, she now perceives you as a rock steady and immovable. This impression transforms her attraction from casual interest to deep admiration. Long term, this moment becomes a mental landmark. When she recalls your interaction, it's not for the words spoken, but for the energy you embodied. The silent message echoes. Here is a man who commands the room without trying. And in that realization, her desire deepens. She wants to see more, to test less. Because power, once recognized, commands loyalty, and love follows loyalty. After the battles of control, silence, and social proof, she tests a final frontier, your emotional vulnerability. Not outright confession or dramatic displays, but subtle invitations to share feelings, fears, or doubts. Maybe she asks, "Are you really okay? Or you seem different lately." Her voice softens, and her gaze seeks something beyond the surface. This moment is a silent litmus test of your inner strength. Can you reveal parts of yourself without crumbling? Can you allow vulnerability without losing dominance? Evolutionarily, controlled vulnerability signals trustworthiness and depth without surrendering power. It's the ultimate paradox Machiavelli understood, but few men master. She's probing for the rare breed of man who can be both fortress and garden, who wields emotional honesty as a weapon, not a weakness. She's testing whether your power can expand to include softness without fracturing. The common weak response is either total shutdown or oversharing. Some men recoil, shutting down emotionally, signaling fear of exposure. Others overshare anxiously, unloading burdens and insecurities without boundaries. Both extremes are disasters. Shutdown communicates emotional unavailability, a fortress with the gate closed tight. Oversharing reveals instability, an inability to self-regulate. In either case, her psychological safety is compromised. She doesn't feel held. She feels exposed or rejected. Machiavelli would see this as loss of control. Power is not absence of emotion, but mastery over it. A man who cannot modulate vulnerability surrenders the narrative. His emotional expression becomes a liability, not an asset. Attraction fades because desire craves mystery, wrapped in confident openness. When she probes, you respond with calibrated honesty. You share a feeling or thought with precision and brevity. Not confession, but revelation. For example, "I've been thinking about some challenges, but I'm focused on solutions." Or, "Sometimes I get tired, but it doesn't change what I'm building." This measured vulnerability signals emotional sovereignty. It says, "I am aware of my inner world, and I share it on my terms." Not for sympathy, but for connection. You create a safe space for her curiosity without ceding authority. Machiavelli's wisdom shines here. True power lies in controlling not just the battlefield, but the perception of self. Your openness becomes a tool of intrigue, deepening emotional resonance while maintaining the unassailable core of your identity. Her eyes soften. She leans in. The invisible wall thins. She feels seen not as a conqueror, but as a partner invited into a carefully curated inner circle. This elevates her trust and intensifies attraction. The long-term effect is profound. You are no longer just the man who resists her tests. You are the man who invites her in, on his terms. This dynamic creates a powerful bond where desire and respect coexist. She begins to anticipate your presence, not just as a leader, but as a safe harbor, a paradox of strength and softness she's rarely encountered. Your power expands beyond dominance into the realm of magnetic partnership. A woman's silent tests are not traps, but invitations to prove your power. Machiavelli teaches us that power is the currency of attraction, not by force, but by command of self. Every interaction, every pause, every glance is a battlefield where your identity is forged or fractured. You have learned the precise ways to respond, to bend without breaking, to lead without dominating, to open without surrendering. Master these. You do not just win her tests. You transform yourself into the man who commands respect, desire, and loyalty by default. Remember, power is silent but deafening. It is not claimed, it is recognized. And once it is recognized, no woman can resist. Now, prepare for the next lesson, because the game of attraction never ends. The question is, are you ready to level up again? Subscribe, watch the next video, and become the power she cannot ignore.